If you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol,
Trump wasn't supportive enough of the cops who were, yes, in danger on J6. How does that explain their behavior on a daily?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that. And watching this...
That's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things.
It all started with a name. Just a name. But one that, in certain circles, carries the weight of thunder and the fury of 1,000 op-eds. That name? Donald Trump. And when Whoopi Goldberg accidentally let it slip on live TV, the fallout was more spectacular than anyone expected. Whoopi, the veteran actress and co-host of The View, has made a sort of personal crusade out of never uttering the former president's name. It's almost become a superstition, a line she would not cross, as if saying it aloud would somehow summon the ghost of political pasts. For years, she tiptoed around it with careful euphemisms and dismissive references, calling him "he who shall not be named" or "you know who." It was performative. It was dramatic. And it was, quite frankly, ridiculous to many viewers. But then came the moment. It was just another day on The View, a panel of passionate, loud, and often polarizing voices chattering away about politics and pop culture. But as the conversation turned to Trump's reemergence in the 2024 political arena, Whoopi got a little too fired up. Emotions flared. Her words moved faster than her filter. And then it happened. She said his name. Donald Trump. The silence was deafening. Her eyes widened as if she had just cursed in church. In a blink, her face twisted into a grimace of theatrical disgust. Then, in a move that left viewers stunned, she spat on the studio floor. On national television. In front of millions. Whether it was intended as a symbolic cleansing or just pure shock jock theater, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Twitter ignited like a forest fire. Headlines popped up within minutes. Whoopi Goldberg spits after saying Trump's name.
That's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things.
When they realize that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed, these women are completely...
Social media was a war zone. On one side, fans defended her right to express revulsion. On the other, critics cried foul, accusing her of childish behavior and outright disrespect, not just to Trump, but to the institution of the presidency itself. It wasn't just a controversial moment. It was gasoline on a flame that had already been burning quietly for months. And then, enter Karoline Leavitt. At 30 years old, Karoline Leavitt isn't just the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history. She's also one of the fiercest, unapologetically bold, razor-sharp with her words, and unflinching under pressure. She's not the type to let something like this slide. And Goldberg? She picked the wrong press secretary to provoke. The very next day, standing at the White House press podium, Leavitt addressed the issue head-on, without notes, without hesitation, and without mercy. "I want to be unequivocally clear," she began, her tone calm but steely, her eyes locked on the cameras. "We do not respond to petulance with petulance. But we do respond." And respond she did. In a scathing monologue that felt more like a courtroom takedown than a press briefing, Leavitt dissected Goldberg's actions, not just as an emotional outburst, but as a symptom of something bigger. A media elite that's grown so insulated, so disconnected from ordinary Americans, that they think spitting on a studio floor is a form of political protest. She didn't stop there. With surgical precision, Leavitt went after The View itself, calling it a caricature of American discourse and accusing its hosts of performative outrage theater. She pointed out the hypocrisy of a show that demands tolerance while demonizing millions of voters who simply think differently. While Ms. Goldberg spits at the mention of a former president, Leavitt said, "This administration is focused on putting food on the table for American families, keeping our borders secure, and ensuring that every citizen has a voice." It was a mic drop moment. But Karoline wasn't just there to throw punches. She brought receipts. She reminded the public of the Trump administration's achievements: economic growth, historic criminal justice reform, the Abraham Accords, and contrasted them with what she called the hollow virtue signaling of daytime talk shows. It wasn't just personal. It was ideological. And the media? They couldn't look away. Cable networks replayed the clip on a loop. YouTube reaction videos popped up like mushrooms after rain. But this wasn't just a Leavitt versus Goldberg feud anymore. The culture war lines were drawn, and soon the commentary cavalry arrived. Bill Maher, never one to mince words, chimed in on his show with biting sarcasm. "I watched The View, so you don't have to," he joked. It's like watching a rabies-infested henhouse where everyone's clucking over each other trying to prove who hates Trump the most. Whoopi's latest stunt. That was the cherry on the unhinged sundae. Joe Rogan, on his massively popular podcast, took a more laid-back approach, but was equally scathing. Whoopi literally spat on the floor, man. Like, what is this? A Shakespeare play? Is she Lady Macbeth washing the Trump off her tongue? And then came Megyn Kelly, who praised Leavitt's grace under fire, and contrasted it with what she called the emotional meltdown of a washed-up Hollywood mouthpiece. It wasn't just a feud anymore. It was a cultural flashpoint. And then, as if summoned by controversy, Donald Trump himself reemerged to stir the pot. In a statement released through his campaign team, Trump recounted a little-known anecdote. There was a time when Whoopi Goldberg was a fan. She asked me to be in one of her movies. She said I should run for president. Funny how things change when you actually do what they said you couldn't. The jab wasn't just aimed at Whoopi. It was a reminder to the American public. No matter how far we've come, hypocrisy is never far behind. And if all that wasn't enough drama, Vice President Kamala Harris found herself unintentionally dragged into the crossfire. In the days following Leavitt's press briefing, comparisons began to swirl online. Social media users posted clips of Harris giving winding, baffling answers to simple questions, juxtaposed with Leavitt's precise, punchy rebuttal of Goldberg's antics. "The difference is night and day," one user wrote. Karoline Leavitt speaks like a leader. Kamala Harris speaks like a word salad with no dressing. Memes followed. TikToks exploded. Leavitt versus Harris became an unexpected side plot in the Goldberg drama, a battle not of personalities, but of clarity versus confusion. The contrast was clear. While Harris meandered through abstract ideas and buzzwords, Leavitt delivered concise, hard-hitting rhetoric that landed like a sledgehammer. Love her or hate her, she had command of the room. And people noticed. But perhaps the most telling part of this entire saga isn't what was said, but who was listening. Millions of Americans, tired of media spin and emotional theatrics, found something refreshing in Leavitt's approach. She didn't scream. She didn't spit. She simply spoke. And that, ironically, may have been the loudest message of all. In the end, this story isn't just about a spit, a slip-up, or a soundbite. It's about two very different Americas. One that performs outrage like it's a Broadway show, and one that's quietly demanding results, reason, and respect. As for Whoopi, she hasn't apologized. She likely never will. Her defenders call her passionate. Her critics call her petty. But one thing's for sure, she lit a fire that might not burn out anytime soon. And Karoline Leavitt? She's not just a press secretary anymore. She's a symbol, a sharp-tongued David standing tall against the Goliaths of Hollywood outrage culture. This feud is far from over. In fact, it's only just beginning.
So what do you think?
Did Leavitt strike the right chord, or did she go too far? Was Whoopi's reaction over the top, or just an honest expression of her political disdain? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Because in today's political theater, the curtain never really falls.